she wanted one last night together. What she discovered changed everything. Before we dive into this unforgettable love story, if you love deep, emotional love stories filled with heartbreak, suspense, and powerful twists, then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Your support keeps these stories alive. Now let's begin. Let's start. He studied her face, searching for an answer. Her eyes held something, a plea, a secret, or maybe regret. His fingers tightened around the pen, but he didn't move. One last night. The words echoed in his mind. Why now? Why, after everything? She reached across the table, her touch feather-light. Please, just one word, but it shattered something inside him. His chest rose and fell, slow and heavy. Finally, he dropped the pen. Okay, he murmured, but neither of them knew this night would change everything. The warmth of his skin was there, but the warmth of his heart felt distant. She looked up at him, searching for the man she once knew. His jaw was tight, his eyes shadowed with thoughts he wouldn't share. Why did it feel like he was already gone? The candlelight flickered, casting long, restless shadows on the walls, or was that the reflection of the storm inside them? She took a deep breath and whispered, "Talk to me." But he only pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her forehead, a kiss that felt more like a goodbye than a beginning. His fingers brushed against hers, but they were trembling, not from the cold, but from something deeper. She studied his face, the way his lips parted as if to speak, then closed again. What was he holding back? Just tired, he murmured. But his pulse betrayed him, racing, restless, as if time was slipping away. She placed a hand on his chest, feeling the rapid thud beneath her palm. "You're lying," she whispered. For a moment he just stared at her. Then he turned away, because the truth was something he couldn't bear to say. Not yet. Her heart pounded as she pulled back, searching his face. "Why does this feel like the end?" she whispered. He didn't answer. He just brushed away her tear with a touch so gentle, so final, it sent a chill down her spine. "Let's not talk tonight," he said, his voice almost breaking. "Let's just be us." But how could she, when every second felt like it was slipping through her fingers? She held on to him tighter, as if she could stop whatever was coming. But deep down, she knew this wasn't just a night to remember. It was a night to say goodbye. She held her breath, pressing herself against the door, straining to hear. His voice was low, urgent, a desperation she had never heard before. "She thinks this is just one last night, but I don't have much time left." Her stomach dropped. Not much time left. What did that mean? A cold dread wrapped around her as he continued. "By morning, it won't matter. She'll move on. She has to." Her hands trembled. Move on? From what? From him? She stepped back, her mind racing. This wasn't just about their marriage. This was about something much, much worse. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the letter, her name scrawled across it in his familiar handwriting. Why had he never given it to her? She swallowed hard and unfolded the paper. The first line made her breath hitch. "By the time you read this, I might not be here anymore." Her vision blurred. Not be here? What was he saying? Her heartbeat thundered in her ears as she scanned the letter, searching for answers, but what she found would change everything. Her hands shook as she clutched the letter, her breath shallow, uneven. The ink on the page seemed to dance before her eyes, distorted by the tears welling up. "I wanted to tell you sooner, but I couldn't. I didn't know how." Her fingers tightened around the fragile paper. "Tell her what?" "I thought pushing you away would make it easier, that if you hated me, it wouldn't hurt as much when I'm gone." A cold chill spread through her veins. Gone? Her mind refused to process the word, but her heart was already breaking. She forced herself to keep reading, dreading what was coming next. "I never wanted this divorce. I never wanted to leave you. But I won't be here to love you the way you deserve. And I need you to be strong. when that day comes. A sob escaped her lips. What was he saying? What was happening to him? She stumbled back, gripping the letter as if it held the last piece of him she had left. The air in the room felt suffocating. She had asked for one last night together, but what if this was truly their last? Her fingers trembled as she typed the name of the medication into her phone. The screen loaded, and then her heart stopped. Late stage, no cure, months at best. A sharp gasp escaped her lips as she clutched the bottle tighter. No, this couldn't be real. Her mind raced back to every moment, his distant gaze, the forced smiles, the way he held her like she was slipping away. It wasn't her he was letting go of. It was life. Tears streamed down her face as she looked toward the bathroom door, where the sound of running water masked the silent storm inside her. How long had he known? How long had he been carrying this alone? Her knees felt weak, her chest tight. He had planned to walk away, to let her believe their love had simply ended because he didn't want her to suffer, but now she knew the truth. And there was no way in hell she was letting him face this alone. Her breath hitched as a terrifying thought took hold. What if this wasn't just about protecting her? She wiped her tears and turned back to the drawer, rummaging through his things with frantic hands. There had to be more, a missing piece to this cruel puzzle. And then she found it. Another letter, unopened, addressed to someone else. A woman's name. Her hands clenched around the envelope as her heart pounded. Who was she? And what did she have to do with his secret? A cold realization crept over her. Was he pushing her away because he wasn't facing this alone? Her chest tightened as she stared at him, her vision blurred with tears. So, you thought lying to me was the answer? Her voice cracked, raw with pain. He ran a shaky hand through his damp hair, his eyes filled with a sorrow deeper than she had ever seen. I couldn't do that to you. I couldn't let you spend your life watching me fade away. She shook her head, gripping the letter tighter. So instead, you broke my heart, made me believe you stopped loving me? A sob escaped her lips. Do you have any idea what that felt like? His breath shuddered as he reached for her, but she stepped back. She wasn't ready to let him hold her. Not when he had spent so long pushing her away. Who is she? She whispered, nodding toward the name on the envelope. His face crumpled. He took a slow, painful breath. She's the only person who could save me. Her fingers tightened against his skin, desperation pouring from her every word. No, it's not too late. There has to be a way. His eyes darkened with something between love and resignation. You don't understand. I already tried. Her breath hitched. Tried? He stepped back, his hands falling to his sides. That letter. The woman's name on it, she's a doctor, the only one who offered me hope. A sob choked her throat. And, what did she say? His silence was deafening. Finally, he looked at her, his gaze filled with something worse than pain. Acceptance. She said, I have weeks left. The weight of his words crashed over her like a tidal wave. Weeks, not months, not years, just weeks. Her legs felt weak, her chest too tight to breathe. She clutched his shirt as if holding on to him could stop time, stop fate. No, this can't be real. Her voice was barely a whisper. His hands covered hers, warm yet trembling. I didn't want you to find out like this. A bitter laugh escaped her lips, laced with sorrow. You didn't want me to find out at all. His eyes closed for a brief moment before he spoke, his voice barely above a breath. I wanted to spare you the pain. Her heart shattered. The pain? Didn't he realize? The pain wasn't in knowing. It was in losing him, in every second slipping through their fingers, in the way he had already made peace with a fate she refused to accept. Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head violently. You don't get to do this alone. You don't get to push me away like I don't exist. Her voice cracked. I love you. That means I stay, no matter how hard this gets. His lips parted as if he wanted to argue, but as he looked at her, truly looked at her, something inside him broke. With a trembling sigh, he pulled her into his arms, holding her as if he was afraid to let go. Because now they both knew the truth. This wasn't just their last night together, it was his last night forever. She pressed her ear against his chest, memorizing the rhythm of his heartbeat, the sound she had taken for granted, the one she now feared losing. Tears soaked into his shirt, but she didn't care. This was all she had left. Him, here, now. He stroked her hair, his touch tender yet filled with an unspoken goodbye. "I never wanted to hurt you," he whispered. She gripped his shirt tighter, shaking her head. "Then don't shut me out. Let me be here till the very end." His breath hitched. She felt it, the way his body tensed, the way he had spent so long trying to be strong for her, to pretend he could do this alone, but he couldn't. And as he exhaled, his arms tightened around her. For the first time, he let himself need her. She closed her eyes, swallowing the pain, the fear, the unbearable truth. She couldn't save him, but she could love him until his very last breath. And that was exactly what she would do. That night, time ceased to exist. There was no past filled with hurt, no future filled with loss. Just now, just them. They danced in the dim glow of the candles, swaying to a song only their hearts could hear. She memorized everything the way his fingers. She kissed him slowly, deeply, as if she could pour a lifetime of love into that single moment. And he kissed her back like a man who wasn't dying, but a man who had finally learned how to live. They laid together, tangled in each other, speaking in hushed voices about nothing and everything. There was no talk of goodbyes, no mention of the ticking clock, because love wasn't about forever. It was about now. And tonight, for the first time in years, they truly lived. As the first light of dawn spilled through the curtains, she lay beside him, unmoving, afraid to disturb the fragile peace of the moment. He was still here, still breathing. Her fingers brushed against his, feeling the warmth of his skin. How could something so simple feel like a miracle? She had begged for one last night together, believing it would be enough. But now she knew the truth. No time would ever be enough. Her heart ached with a silent prayer. One more day, just one more. To hear his voice, to see his smile, to memorize every detail before life could steal him away. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. She didn't want to waste a single second mourning what hadn't been lost yet. Instead, she leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss against his forehead, her whisper barely more than a breath. "I'm still here, and I'm not letting go." Because sometimes love isn't about holding on. It's about never letting go. This isn't just a love story. It's an emotional roller coaster of love, heartbreak, and a truth that changes everything. If you love deep, emotional love stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story. Your support keeps this journey alive.